Chakra. Today we'll be discussing the chakras. My name is Sharon Cyrus, pronouns she, her, hers. I'm a member representative for Yoga Alliance. Please take a moment to complete the poll that appears on your screen. We'd love to know where you're joining us from today. And just be reminded that this is worth 1.25 hours of CE content in the educational category of Yoga Humanities. Kushi Malhotra is an ERYT 200. She's a Yakup. She's an MSW and MPH. She received her initiation from the Himalayan Institute and advanced training in Vinyasa Krama under Srivasta Ramaswamy in the lineage of Krishnamacharya. Kushi's teaching style is rooted in classical Hatha Yoga and Tantra, subtle body energetics, Vipassana, and Ayurveda. She lives half in US and half in the Himalayas, where she serves as a guide in her mindful tourism venture, Simply Himalaya, that supports role-minded education and takes people on pilgrimage. On her website, www.kushyoga.com, you can find her podcast Atha Yog Anusasanam, videos, and e-courses. Welcome again, Kushi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello. Thank you, Sharon. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you're enjoying this day wherever you are in the world and whatever time zone you are. It's really wonderful to be with all of you again. So from my heart, namaste, friends. Let's just start with prayer and invocation, please. So just relax your body, relax your breath. So over the last few weeks, we've been getting a little bit accustomed to this language of prana, the language of the life force that lives within all beings and in this manifest universe. So see if you can connect in this moment to that. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve bhantu niramaya, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Prayer for all beings. May all be happy. May all be free of their sufferings. Namaskar. So, friends, today we enter everybody's favorite topic, right? The chakras. This is by far and large a topic that so many of you just love to investigate, love to study. And as teachers and students of yoga, we never tire of listening about the chakras, about studying the chakras, right? And I think there's a reason for that, right? They provide a comprehensive model for really understanding not only your body, but your mind, your spirit. And they provide a directional force in which we are, to find our way along this roadmap of our life. And the chakras really help to understand, for me, it's like an Eastern psychological model, right? That we can understand and begin to apply to our daily lives. So, as you remember, last week we did the Vayus. This week we will be starting the chakras, of course, and then we go week by week, right, to try and get a deeper understanding for ourselves as practitioners, right? So many of you are teachers, but first and foremost, we have to remember that we are practitioners, right? And that is really the foundation upon our own experience, right? Is what we then share with our students and with everyone around us in our lives, right? So as we approach, the middle of the series, I want you to start to try and understand and feel for yourself how you can start to integrate this knowledge in the way in which you share in classes, so that they're not so directly asana based, right? There are ways to do that. There are ways to reframe our own understanding so that we begin comfortable, more and more comfortable with the language of prana. So here we are, almost in the middle, right? Next week will be the middle of our series, and we are taking our time week by week to access different roadmaps to understand the self. And if you remember, right, our guiding principle is yatha brahmande tata pindande. As in the microcosm, so in the macrocosm, right? Both are interchangeable, both are interrelated. And I think especially for this week, it's very, very a practical way of looking at this roadmap of the chakras, because the chakras are representative of both an outer atmosphere and an inner atmosphere that really match up in our understanding of the subtle body. The chakras themselves, right? We're taking our, moving along this timeline of yoga philosophy, yoga science, and now we're really pulling from a lot of the Upanishads, which we did the last 2 weeks. But now we get really heavy into the tantric period, right? So the tantras are really the basis of our understanding of the chakras, and where we get a lot of the textual references for the chakras as well. And if you remember, right, we're moving through all of the koshas, right? Day by day, week by week, you'll find that every time you go to practice, every time you go to teach, right, your mind is imbued by a different knowledge, a different experience that is then affecting what it is that you share, what it is that you practice. And this knowledge, this experience is guided by this intuitive force of your buddhi. And the more that we practice, the more that we have this continuous practice, right, the more that that light of the buddhi can come in to guide us as far as what we need to do in the moment, what we need to teach in the moment, what we need to say in the moment to connect ourselves to the language of prana. And this is related, right, to a wonderful sutra. I think you should all read. If you haven't studied the sutra, it's really good to study the sutra, because so much of our experience as teachers, it's almost like we're a storehouse of practices, and everyone comes to us asking for practices. Can I have a practice for this? Can I have a practice for that? I'm feeling this way. I need a practice to get rid of this, right? But Patanjali says something very different, right? He says that to become firm within oneself, to become firm to one's goal in yoga, whatever your goal is in yoga, it's not the practice. It's what holds the foundation of the practice, which is dirgha kala, to do something for a long time, nairantarya, right? Continuously, with no interruption, and with this sense of devotion. So when we study the text, when we study the subtle body, when we start to understand and make these connections with ourselves and the teachings of yoga, right, that devotion begins to erupt within our own minds and bodies. And then that devotion leads to this effort, the self-effort of a continuous, uninterrupted practice, right? So I really want you to start to tune your mind, right? To bring your mind to that quality of continuity of practice rather than the practice itself. As you know, in yoga, it's a vast ocean. There are unending amounts of practices and unending amounts of sequences in which we can arrange practices together. But what gives the fruits, what gives the benefits is the continuity, is the discipline, is the firm sankalpa to continue day by day to do the practice. And that is where, right, this energetic quality of buddhi, the intuitive wisdom that comes, that arises, that springs up within yourself, right, that's where you'll start to begin to feel it, not in the practice itself, right? So the chakras are now based on this system of the nadis. And, I won't go so much into the details that you all very well know about the nadis and the chakras, but I want to simplify things for you in terms of what's important about the chakras, what's important about the nadis, because there's a lot of knowledge and a lot of information, right? So to kind of glean out what is most important for us in this moment, right? So this system of the chakras, this especially now we have this 7 chakra system. Now I don't want you to get confused. It's 7 chakras is by no means the definitive chakra model. 110 chakras are there, 108 chakras are there, 12 chakra model is there, 10 chakra model is there, a 7 chakra model, a 6 chakra model, 5 chakra model, a 3 chakra model, right? Depending on the time period. Now, for this moment in time, since about the 15th century or so, it's the 7 chakra model that is really the one that human beings are drawn to, right? In about 100, 200 years, who knows which chakra model would then, come into our consciousness. So for right now, I will be talking about the 7 chakra model, but I also will be going and talking about a few of the minor chakras also in the head as well. So we might go about 9 chakras here, right? But again, the chakras are the systems of the nadis that intersect in very condensed ways along the spine. Now, as you know, the nadis are said to be 72,000, in their number. And if you look in this picture, and I'm sure you've all seen this picture, it's not such a clear picture, but if it was clear, you would be able to see that there is a Sanskrit name for each and every nadi. Not that we have to remember all of them, but there are a few that are very important to us. And you know them as Ida, Pingala, and Shushumna up the center of the spine. Now, these nadis, right, are what is guiding the pulsation of the life force, the pranic energy. Prana is the very fundamental building block of why we find ourselves animate in this world. And these pranic waves are really comprised of 3 qualities, right? One is called saundarya, or waves of beauty, right? They pulsate. The pranic waves within your body pulsate with the waves of beauty when you see and behold something beautiful that takes your breath away. Another is the pranic waves of ananda, or bliss, right? When you're caught in a state of joy or rapture, which I think so many of us yesterday, right, when we experienced in America especially, this beautiful poem by Angela Gorman and who she was and the way in which the poetry represented so much of our own hearts. And this is the quality and the importance of artists and poets and musicians, to bring us out of the mundane aspects of life and to bring us to the feet of the divine. So all of you who are poets and artists and musicians, please keep doing what you're doing. We need you more than ever, right? To infuse us with these pranic waves of inspiration, right? To bring us to the quality of saundarya and ananda. Now, the third pranic wave, the third pulsation that can move through these nadis are the waves of kama, or the waves of desire, right? And in this world, we are overrun with so many types of desire, whether it's desire for family, whether it's desire for power, whether it's desire for greed, whether it's a desire for material attachments, right? All of these things are intersecting so many times. So the predominance of these three atmospheres, these 3 energies of prana, are what is moving through our whole system of these 72,000 nadis, right? And the chakras are like just the meeting place, the nexus points of all of these nadis. So, you've heard them explained, I'm sure, in so many different ways. For me, I grew up a lot in New York and I've been to a lot of cities. So I always think of like subway stations or metro stations, right? And just like if you've ever been to the Delhi metro station, Connaught Place, right? It's just like an intersection of so many lines all together, right? That are pulsing, and that central hub, everything coming together, right? That's really like the chakra, right? It's really drawing forth all the nadis come and they intersect in the subtle body along the spine in these very important meeting points that have a superimposition with our actual physical nervous system. So we have the subtle body nervous system that which we cannot see, but we can feel, right? And then we have the physical nervous system, which is very much a very clear map for us and where these chakras are along the system, right? So you can see here, right, the chakras themselves, the seven system of the chakra, right, they really intersect with these specific nerve plexi in the body. And these nerve plexi begin to have very specific and important physiologic functions. And then also our balance and homeostasis that is created through our endocrine system, our adrenal system, right? So this is why I think so many people are drawn to the chakras, right? Because there is a very clear connection between the nervous system and the subtle body system of the chakras, which is not as clear like when we're studying the vayus or the koshas, right? But when we study the chakras, we can see, oh wow, like this beautiful spine, right, that is extending from the brainstem all the way down to the tailbone is the linking mechanism, right, through the whole body, from the heart, from the digestive system, from the pelvic bowl and the womb area, from the base of the body, right? It is the system that brings us in touch with our own nervous system and how to balance. And this is one of the basic qualities and necessities for our yoga practice. Now, the base of the chakras, right? The basis of this chakra model is really derived from this energy known as kundalini, right? Kundalini in Tantra is seen as the divine mother, right? The one who animates everything, the Shakti principle. So many of you might have known Shakti and Shiva. When Shakti goes up the spine to meet Shiva and the center of the head, that's where this union comes from, right? Now, in this photo, I love this photo because it's the Shakti, the Kundalini, she's responsible for all aspects of creation, preservation, destruction, right? She's the one who holds all in her body, right? Everything that we experience is held in the body of this Shakti, of this animate creative force of the universe. And again, it's like poetry, right? These images, art, poems, music, they all bring reference to an aspect of our mind that isn't consistently derived just from our manas or from our cognition. It brings us into a state of reverie where we get in touch with the more lunar aspect of who we are, the more intuitive aspect of who we are. So the imagery is not so literal. I don't want you to take it literally, but take it as more of a metaphoric language in which you can be inspired to seek, right? So this kundalini, kunda is like the representative of the coil, and kunda is also like the havan kund. Kunda is like the base of the fire pit, right? In if you practice havans or the fire offerings, right? The kunda is the pit in which you offer your samagri or your offerings there, and that fire pit is located at the base of the spine, and kundalini shakti is what's called the dormant aspect, the sleeping aspect, an immense reservoir of energy that is waiting to be tapped into. Now, the Shakti, the energy, the power that we do have access to is called Prana Shakti. So there's Kundalini Shakti and Prana Shakti. And Prana Shakti is that which is very present, that is which is animate in our body right here, right now. And then that there are these channels, Ida and Pingala, that are very much intersecting along from the base of the spine all the way up, right? And their intersecting points represent each chakra along the spine. And the spine is a very important aspect of everything we do in yoga, whether it's physiologically or if you're working towards the more esoteric. It's always the central axis is always the spine. So whatever movements we are doing to strengthen the spine, to create more flexibility in the spine, to create a harmonic convergence between our mind, our heart, and our gut, right? It's all related to how much access can we have to this spinal column. And in yoga, the spinal column is called the Meru Danda. Now you might know Danda, right? Dandasana, right? The staff, the stick, right? And in the mythology of yoga, in the text, there is a mystical mountain called Mount Meru. Mount Meru represents the central axis of the entire universe. And this central axis of the entire universe is what is responsible for everything that's manifest. You can see here in the picture on the left-hand side, the central axis of the universe supported by the strength, the power of the elephants, and surrounded by the cosmic sea, right? And in the text, there's a story about, churning the mountain, using the mountain as like a pestle to churn, the amrit or the nectar from the great ocean. And this motif of the central ocean, the central axis of the spine, the Mount Meru, the central Meru Danda, is again esoteric, but the story itself brings you into contact with the central axis of your own body. And in the Shiva Samhita, there's a specific text related to this Mount Meru, which I would like to read to you. And in it, Shiva says, an aspirant of yoga should see in his own spine Meru and the 7 islands, the 7 chakras, the rivers, the oceans, the mountains, the guardians of the 8 directions, the seers, the sages, the stars, the planets, and all constellations, all the holy places, the sun, the moon, the prime source of creation, preservation, and destruction. The aspirant should see in the microcosm of his own body the 5 elements. All these are supported by the spine and exist in the spine. One who knows the secret is in fact a yogi. There is no doubt about it, right? So one who knows the secret is a yogi. We're not yogis yet, right? So I just want to say, be careful about using this word yogi also, right? We are aspirants on the path. We are yoga abhyasas or sadhakas. We are aspiring, we're practicing, right? A yogi is one who's known this truth, who's come with his own or her own or their own experience to know this truth within themselves. And so when we are accessing the central line of the universe, right? Our microcosm of our body, the central line of the universe is also related to the central mountain of the world. And, when I think about Mount Meru, it reminds me so much of a great wisdom elder, Black Elk, and a mystical vision that he had related to the central mountain of the world, the central mountain of the universe. And I just want to read a few of his words so you can, get a sense of the similarity of the wisdom that is imbibed in understanding the axis of your own spine. So if you don't know, Black Elk was an elder in the Lakota tradition, right? And he had a vision that he said, I saw 6 grandfathers who were the 6 sacred directions, north, south, east, west, above, and below. They stood at the center of the earth, at the axis of the 6 sacred directions, at the central mountain of the world where stillness and movement embrace as one. Then I was standing on the highest mountain of them all. and round about beneath me was the whole hoop of the world, right? And while I stood there, I saw more than I can tell and understood more than I saw. For I was seeing in a sacred manner the shape of all things in the spirit and the shape of all shapes as they must live together like one being. And I saw that the sacred hoop of my people was one of many hoops that made one circle, wide as daylight and as starlight. And in the center grew one mighty flowering tree to shelter all the children of one mother and one father. That sacred mountain for in that time was the, if you've ever been to Harney Peak in South Dakota, I had an incredible opportunity, privilege to visit and the sacred sites in the US. And I can say that Harney Peak in South Dakota is definitely my favorite place in the US. Very, very powerful, potent, physical, manifest representation of the sacred spine, right? Of the sacredness of what is bringing and uniting, right? All the energies in our body. Because when we don't practice yoga, we don't have something to unify them, we find ourselves in modes of separation, in modes that are looking in different directions. So the spine brings us back to this unifying aspect, right? And each chakra has its own quality, its own importance. There's no hierarchy in the chakras. And this is another thing I really want to make clear. There's no need to think that Sahasrara is, the end all be all, and Muladhara is just, base. We call it the base level. It's not base, it's the foundation, it's the root. If you look at this photo, right, the whole hoop of the world in this cosmic ocean, right, the whole hoop of the world supported by the base of these mighty elephants, right? So it's just very beautiful to find the similarities and to listen to these teachings, because what they do when we listen to them, we feel in our own body those pranic waves of Saundarya and Ananda. And when we feel those waves of Ananda and Saundarya, beauty and bliss, that inspiration, right, brings us into the harmonious convergence of our lunar and our solar aspects in Ida and Pingala. And when they merge, there's a concentration and balance of our mind. For our purposes in the chakras, I really want to be very simple. There's a lot of new age language around the chakras and it gets very complicated. And in my perspective, in the way I've learned, and in the way I've experienced within my own body, I just want to share very specific things with you. One is that the chakras, most importantly, are about the 5 elements, right? This is not about the colors, right? The colors are there as a physical representation because the chakras move from gross level earth, which is very solid, to more subtle elements, right? From earth to space and beyond to mind. Same with the colors. Red, longest wavelength. And then as we move up the color spectrum, the wavelengths get shorter and shorter and shorter. So it was just found that it was an easy representation to create an understanding of gross to subtle, right? The chakras themselves are not these colors. They are a myriad of colors depending on what you experience in the moment. Everything is changing all the time within your body and mind. And so are the chakras. So to have them fixed like this is actually doing a disservice to our understanding. It creates a rigid mindset, right? That doesn't allow for the experience of the present moment to shine through. The elements themselves have homes in our bodies, and their homes are the chakras. Each element has a specific mantra or bija mantra. Bija mantra is a seed mantra, or the sound, right? The vibration of the element itself. So for our purposes, the most important things that we really need to understand about chakras are home of the elements and the mantra related to each of the elements. That's, if there's anything I want you to take away from this session, it's that the home of the elements and the mantras related to the elements, and how each element has a different quality, a different consistency, a different thing that can teach us, about different aspects about ourselves. So Muladhara chakra, right at the very base, is represented by this square, right? The square is there we go, there's a square, right? The square is the earth element, right? Because represents the four directions, right? And north, south, east, west, and holding that kind of the plane of the earth in these four directions. There's a lot of imagery here. Don't get confused, right? It's just the main imagery really is, again, you can see the Sanskrit letter in the middle, lam. Lam is the bija mantra of the earth element, not the chakra, but the element. Remember, it's the element's home. So that's really what we are taking into our consideration when we are traveling in our minds, in our asana practice, in our pranayama practice, in our meditation practice, right? Up and down the Merudanda, the central axis of the universe that unifies all hoops of all people of all considerations, of all belief systems within this very, axis of our spine. Now, interestingly, if you look, there is the things I want to highlight in the chakras are mainly the animals, right? The mantra, the element, and the animal that is associated with each chakra. The animal here is the 7-trunked elephant, right? And why 7 trunks? A lot of you have heard, the root chakra is related to self-preservation, the basic needs of our lives, and, related to trust and fear, all of these things. But it's not so much that. I mean, that's part of it, right? But these 7 trunks of the elephant reflect 7 needs, 7 aspects of what it means when we incarnate in this body, in this mind, what it means to be a human being, right? And that is the need for security, sexuality, longevity, the need to share knowledge, our self-realization, this and the driving need for union, right? For understanding ourselves. All of these are present within the base of our body, within Muladhara, within the earth element. Now, the earth element, you may or may not know, has all the other elements in it. So again, we separate things to understand them, but know that they are cohesive, they coalesce together. So earth has water, earth has fire, earth has air, earth has space or ether, right? All of these are within the earth element itself. And this Muladhara chakra is the base, the home of the kunda, right? The base, the base pot or this receptacle for the kundalini energy, for Shakti, for the divine mother, right? And whatever we're doing at the base is helping to solidify our relationship, right? With that primal energy, with that dormant energy that we are trying to access in our yoga practice, so that we can fulfill these 7 desires of our lives, right? Whatever it is that we need to do to fulfill our dharma or our purpose for being here, right? Or even figuring out what that purpose is, right? Yoga and our practice helps to clarify, right? All these dissipating thoughts, all the things on the surface, right? To clean the mirror a little bit so the truth can shine through, the truth can be reflected. And in this Muladhara, right, we are experiencing the basic needs of our body, of course, right? So to have a healthy relationship with the lower half of our body means also to have a healthy relationship with the earth element around you. So this is something that I really want to emphasize. When you are working with the chakras, you're working with the elements. When you're working with the elements within you, also see how it is that you interact with the elements outside of you, right? How many times have you gotten on the front of your mat, folded your hands, and started your Surya Namaskara, salutation to the sun, countless times. But how many times have you gone outside and looked at the sun and folded your hands at the sun and done a Surya Namaskara, right? That's the way we integrate the macrocosm with the microcosm, right? That's the way we begin to understand the interrelatedness of all things. Because if we practice yoga in this four-wall square of these man-made structures, and just the way in which yoga is now practiced, drop-in classes and Surya Namaskar as the physical exercise, right? We miss out on this deeper understanding of the rhythms, the tides of this Merudanda, right? What the elders have said, what ancestors have said, what the texts have said. It's not by any, it's not for nothing. There's a reason why the integration needs to come. So if you find yourself having difficulty understanding how to interact with your own body, interact with the elements around you, right? They will give you the proper knowledge and wisdom just by your being present, right? Creating that atmosphere to be present to the Surya, to the sun, be present to Bhumi, to the earth, right? Be present to water, all of these things. So this foundational element of earth, right? When we walk on the earth, when we sit on the earth, when we're doing our seated practices, right? To connect to the earth, when we lay down on our bellies, lay down on our backs, right? To have maximum surface area on the earth. All of these things help us to connect to that aspect within ourselves. And that aspect that is not denying our desires, right? Is not denying the sevenfold nature of our seeking in this human body. And if you remember, it's the seeking is part of the tantric system. It's part of bhoga and apavarga, fulfillment of our desires and fulfillment of our seeking all together, right? So not the sense of denial or looking down upon. Svadhisthana. Svadhisthana, if you remember, so let me see if you remember, when we go back to the koshas, I want to see, do you remember who this person is? If you remember when we were studying the koshas, there was a conversation between Bhrigu and his father, Varuna. Varuna, if you remember, the lord of all the waters, the ocean, right? Sitting on the Makaraha, the crocodile, right? So in the Svadhisthana chakra, Vam is that the Bij mantra, and the water element, and that the master of the water element is the crocodile. Interestingly enough, Varuna, right, is the deity, is the manifestation of our own need for justice, for morality, for law and order, for order and justice and equality, right? So the Svadhisthana chakra is related to all things that drive us for understanding our own value systems, right? And you see how quickly they are moving and changing. And these value systems then permeate, right, the makeup and the fabric of the society around us. So, it's a very, these chakras become very interesting metaphors then for what is happening in society around us and what are the needs that we come across in either the people that we're serving or when we are interacting with the world ourselves. So the aspect of this, powerful force, and Swadhisthana and the Muladhara, they're very much interrelated. So it's while I have to speak about them separately, I really want to bring them together because they feed so deeply into one another that when you're working in the pelvic center and the root, and you're really beginning to understand the expression of your spine through the lumbar region, the sacral region, and the coccyx, the tailbone, right? It's all connected all together in this kind of lumbar plexus region. And this idea of the Svadhisthana, right? Svadhisthana, Muladhara means, right, your root, the support of your root. Sva Adhisthana means the in her own abode. Sva means yourself, but for our purposes in Tantra, in this system, Sva is her, is the divine mother, is Shakti. It's her abode. It's her home. This is the home where she resides in, right? Where she plays in this divine play, where everything is a manifestation, all the creation of our desires, right, in this world. Bhoga, all the fulfillment of our desires. So Svadhisthana, taking it in a way in which we can be a companion to this Shakti, to this energy, rather than, again, this sense of denial or seeing that something is wrong with the desires that we have. All it is a reframing, right? About not being overrun by our attachments and our clinging. They're there. We have human bodies, and it's very important that we have human bodies to recognize the field of dukkha and sukha, of both suffering, all that is sorrowful, and all that is beautiful at the same time. And this is, of course, one of the greatest challenges we face as human beings, but a field of learning that is unique like no other. Manipura. Manipura is the city of gems, the city of jewels. And wow, there's a lot to say about this chakra because it is a very, very important chakra for Hatha yogis. When we talked about our vayus last week, if you remember, for our intensive purposes, the most important, the most accessible place to gain this prana shakti, the energy to then direct, whether it's for our spiritual purposes, whether for it's our dharma in the world, is the Manipura chakra, is the Samana Vayu, the center of the abdomen, the fire center, right? Represented by the downward facing red triangle. And the Bija mantra here is Ram. And interestingly, the animal is the ram, all right? And the ram is, a very persistent creature, right? It has a lot of that strength and fire, and also the sense of the aggressiveness of, wanting to be the best, or wanting to, fight one's enemy or whoever is trying to be at the top, right? And this is really the center of the abdomen that directs our will. But it's not just the sense of aggressiveness, but also perseverance, right? This Manipura chakra really gives us that energy to persevere. If you remember in the first stories about the koshas, Brigu had to persevere layer by layer as he came to understanding. He had to then what? Engage in tapas, engage in his practice, right? To then get to deeper and deeper layers of understanding. And it's that Manipura chakra, it's that perseverance, the energy of that fire principle that gives us the enthusiasm and that energy to keep going, right? Now, the Manipura chakra is related, if you look on the spine itself, to the vagus nerve. And this is a very, very important nerve for us as yoga teachers, as yoga practitioners, from the brainstem down through the heart plexus, the cardiac plexus, and then comes out through the gut and innervates the entire gut. So this nerve is really what's responsible for why we breathe deeply, right? The diaphragmatic muscle, the relationship between our gut and our emotions and our feelings. So when we are practicing our deep diaphragmatic breathing, we are stimulating the vagus nerve, we are increasing our vagal tone. And not only that, we are collecting and harnessing the pranic energy in the Manipura chakra. It's like if you've ever studied science, it's like the mitochondria of a cell. It's the powerhouse, it's the hub, right, of where the cell gets its energy from. So for us, it's an important place because there are really, in the 7 chakra system or in all chakra systems, there are really 3 main chakras. And Manipura is one of them. Manipura is inclusive of Svadhisthana and Muladhara, right? They all kind of work together as one unit, right? And that's really when we are working at the base of the body, working in the principle of fire. Now, fire has two aspects, heat and light, right? Heat of the fire. Fire can be very destructive, as you all know. Those of you living in California, you know how destructive it can be, right? And it can annihilate all life force. But that's the base, that's the core of the fire. If you look to the flames, the upper flames of the fire, there's a light, right? That's the tejas, the illumination aspect of the fire, right? So when we are working with Manipura chakra, it's about transforming that which is destructive for illumination, for lighting up avidya or ignorance within our own selves. Anahata. Anahata, everyone really loves Anahata chakra, right? We want to always be in the heart space. And, so many practices are about this very serene and beautiful chakra of the center of our chest, the pranic energy in the chest. Yam is the bija mantra of the Anahata. Anahata is this sense of, a sound that is created of its own accord. It needs nothing outside of it to create, right? The sound. And when we close our eyes, it's like Om, the Om is the first sound. It's the sound of the universe. It needs nothing to create it. It already exists. I don't know if you've had this opportunity ever, like if you ever found yourself in like a field of wildflowers and there's a lot of bees around and you close your eyes, it's overwhelming, right? That sound of Om all around. And that's really the sound, right? Even though the sound is yum, but it's the Bij mantra is yum for the heart, but it's the sound that is created within itself. It doesn't need two hands, right? Two hands are not needed to create the sound. And the animal related to Anahata is the gazelle. And the gazelle, or the deer, right, is one that is very kind of fanciful, can get scared very easily, but has this deep gentleness and sweetness and innocence as well. Can jump very high to the highest heights, right? But can startle as well. And this is the experience of our heart. Right? We get startled, we become afraid, and we create the barrier of our heart. But if you go deep into the lotus of the heart, the cave of the heart, there is a sense of deep devotion. There is a sense of purity, of innocence that is present in each and every being on this planet, right? So this Anahata is really the place in which we begin to recognize it's the meeting place, right, of the sukha and the dukkha, the sorrowful and the beautiful, and how to hold both at the same time, right? How to be in the understanding of the impermanence of all things in this universe. So many times as teachers, we are teaching, okay, now we need to meditate loving kindness, we need to meditate on the heart. But again, the system is all inclusive, it's holistic. So when you are experiencing or working into the heart, I always like to think it's really what's below it that creates the foundation for this to flourish, for the heart to flourish. It's the Manipura that creates the foundation for the heart to flourish. One must have the necessary energy to be able to then share that loving kindness, that understanding, right, for all beings. If you don't have the necessary energy, then they're just empty words, right? You don't really mean them from your heart, right? And you know the difference when you are in that state and when you're not. So it's really important to recognize in the moment, where am I? Where along this roadmap am I? And to accept that and to work from there and not jumping here, jumping there, right? Because that's what we're striving for, but to be in a state of, pure understanding of right now I'm overrun with my desires, or I'm, my ego is very much in a state of seeking, right? To be with that presence, right? To hold that and to respect it as you hold it. And when we work with the Anahata, we learn how to hold these things. We learn the strength and the power that comes from the base of the Manipur, that comes from the base of those strong elephants holding up the Merudanda, the whole universe itself, right? And that base is then going to allow this lotus of the heart to open and flourish, right? Vishuddha chakra or Vishuddhi, you might have heard either way. A special type of purity, right? Shuddh. Shuddh means pure, untouched, untainted. And the bija mantra here is hum, hum. And again, we see the elephant comes up again, right? Sometimes this elephant is the smoky gray color. Sometimes you'll see it as a white color representing purity or whatever, but it doesn't matter. The main thing here is that it has one trunk. So now those 7 aims are now directed into this upward movement, right? The upward movement, right? The aims have been calmed, the mind has been concentrated. So you remember it's from last week, the Udana Vayu, the Vayu that is circulating in the throat, representative of the enthusiasm to go for the goal, right? To keep going on our practice, fed by Manipura, right? Nourished and flourished by Anahata. And now the Vishuddhi, the creative aspect, the creative force within us, right? That brings together the link from beyond, the link of the mystery, what is beyond our cognitive, intellectual understanding, which is so much, the makeup of our world right now. And that's why I say we need the artists to remind us of what is beyond the veil, right? And to give us those clues through words, through song, through visual, to remind us of that potential and how to collect that potential so that we can access that part of ourself that is present in each and every one of us. There's no being on this earth that doesn't have this capacity. It's not special, right? It's just our own specific, unique imprint in this world. And we need to understand, right? When we try to be like others, or when we feel like that person is doing something that I should be doing, right? When we move and step out of our dharma, we come out of the purity of our own existence, our own imprint, our own unique way of being here. Right? So when we practice through the chakras, this Vishuddhi gives us that clue, that intuition as to what is our own way of creation, what is the own way in which we manifest in this world. With Shakti, right, we become a vessel, a body, an empty vessel for Shakti to create out of us. So you work in accord, you work hand in hand with this divine energy, this divine mother, right? And that you become a vessel for whatever is positive and uplifting for humanity in your own unique way. Vishuddha will tell you that, your own unique way. Ajna. The Ajna chakra is, I love this imagery because the Ajna chakra is, as you know, when the Ida and Pingala are moving up the spine, up the spine, up the spine, they come together, they converge eventually, right? They move in different directions, but eventually they converge. And when they converge, you get this perfectly balanced, right? Half male, half female deity, right? This half male, Ardha, Nadi, Ishvara. Ardha means half, Nadi means female, half female, Ishvara means the divine, right? Ardha, Nadi, Ishvara, where you have this perfectly balanced understanding of both the feminine and the masculine within yourself, right? And to understand that each human being needs to hold both. No matter what body we are born into or how we identify as, within us are both, right? And both need to be nourished. And when they merge together, we get this perfectly balanced being. Now, the mantra related to the Ajna chakra, depending on what tradition, some traditions say Soham, I go with Om. So Om, the mantra here, right? When you're moving the Bija mantra, meditating on the mantra Om. And the quality of the Ajna chakra, as you may or may not know, is all aspects of the mind. So later on, we'll study the aspects of the mind, but the aspects of the mind, the manas, the mind that is interacting with the senses, the indriyas, the chitta, the storehouse of all of your habit patterns, your samskaras, the buddhi, your intuitive, illuminating aspect of yourself, sometimes known as the intellect, related to the vijnanamaya kosha, right? So these three aspects, and your ahamkara, right? The sense of I, right? All of things that make this nice little statue that we all kind of tightly hold on to is I. So this is the quality of understanding not just manas, not just the active, cognitive aspect of our mind, but all aspects of our mind, right? When we meditate here, we begin to understand the reality that the mind is manifold. It has different personalities, it has different qualities. And can we start to, again, balance all the qualities of the mind? Right now, in modern age, heavy emphasis on our manas, heavy emphasis on our ahankara. And so we have to now retreat a little bit back towards the buddhi and start to purify the chitta, the samskaras, right, through meditation. So we remember when Patanjali says that steady, uninterrupted, continuous with devotion practice, that practice is meditation, right? I don't know how many countless times I've heard teachers say, right, everything that we're doing is for meditation, and then they just, teach an hour asana class. It's important. It's important to begin to start to teach and introduce meditation first and foremost for yourself. Can you establish a daily meditation practice so you can understand these aspects of your own mind? And then begin to slowly, once it's become imbibed in the fabric of your being, then only can you teach it, right? Then only is it truth for you that you can teach, right, in your classes or wherever you are in the world, however you are engaging with this. So Ajna Chakra really teaches us how to do that. And then we have some minor chakras in this head. Now, these minor chakras, known as the Guru Chakra, the Soma Chakra, the Bindu Chakra, I won't go too much into them, but I want you to know that when things merge, right, these flashes of intuition, these flashes of, guides, we can say our guides, our spirit guides, our ancestors, whatever it is, that these messages that come through, right, are coming through from this clear mirror of insight in the center of the head, right? And eventually to Sahasrara. There's no point talking about Sahasrara because we have to stay practical with where we are, right? Sahasrara, 1,000-petal lotus, and the realm beyond this time and space that we find ourselves in. But like I said, in yoga, there are three main chakras, and even Patanjali talks about these three main chakras. One, Nabi chakra. The Nabi is just your navel center, right? So meditating on the navel center gives you knowledge of your whole physical body, the map of your whole physical body. Yoga Sutra 3, chapter 3, 29. Then Patanjali says, Hridaya Chitta Samvit. Meditation on the heart gives knowledge of the mind. In yoga, the seat of consciousness is in your heart. And this is why so much of our meditation practices are rooted in the heart center, right? To understand all aspects of the way the mind moves in the body and affects the whole body. And then meditation in the light inside the center of the head. That means that includes, right? So all of these, all inclusive, that means Ajna Chakra, Sahasrara Chakra, all the minor chakras deep in the midbrain, gives you contact with the masters, the siddhas, right? The ones who came before you, who lit the way, the messages that we all get. They're not special, right? These are messages, these are intuitive flashes that we all have the potential for. So really, when we break down the chakras, we have then one main here, right? The center of the head, the midbrain. Two main here, the heart, throat connecting, right? These two work in accord, the center of the heart. And then 3, the center of the navel, connecting the whole pelvic basin, the whole Muladhara, everything in the base. That center point of that is the solar plexus. So those are our 3 main focal points when we practice with the chakras, the 3 main axes of our spine that hold up the spine, this Merudanda of the universe of the spine. Okay, so that's all I have. And if there are questions, I'd like to actually start a practice. So we have time for the practice, and then maybe we can see if we have time for questions later. You can always contact me, in the variety of ways you all know how. So would like to practice first. And today's practice we're going to do is the meditation, of course, with the Bij mantras, right? The repetition of the Bij mantras. Remember, the Bij mantras are the ways in which we interact with the element. Okay, don't forget that it's the element that is important, that is deposited, that has its home in the chakras, right? And if you want to learn more, you can always go, there's e-courses on my website, and you can always study more in that way. But right now, if you can just sit upright, you can always sit on a chair. I'm sitting in a chair. You can close your eyes, please. Just let yourself come into contact with whatever is most present appearing to you in this moment. And see if you can feel within yourself those waves of beauty, waves of bliss, waves of desire, whatever is moving through your system in this moment. Just bring your attention to the root, the pelvic floor, the base of the spine, in this general area, right? So these chakras are not just within the body, they also are around the body. Our pranic body, our energy body, is not limited to our physical form. Just feel the way in which you sit, the support of this central mountain of the universe. See if you can feel the pulsation of the life force, the pranic energy there. Of course, our physical breath doesn't extend to the pelvic floor, but it's our prana that we can guide and direct there with the mind. Good. And we're just going to repeat the Bija mantra, Lam, 8 times as you focus at the root. You can repeat it in your mind, you can repeat it out loud with me, or you can just listen. If you're not comfortable with mantra, no problem. Just feel the very base, the life force there. Lam, 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 With your next inhale, just travel slightly upwards to the center of the pelvis, deep in the pelvic bowl, the watery depths of the pelvis. Mantra is Vam. 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 Inhale to the solar plexus, above the navel, below the meeting place of the floating ribs. Bija mantra is Ram. 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 Good. And then traveling through the inner space, through the diaphragm, this meeting place of heart and abdomen, through the way in which we breathe through the vagus nerve to the center of the heart, deep in the internal space of the heart. Bija mantra is Yam. 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 Inhaling throat center. It's actually the notch of the throat. Feeling all aspects, all sides, front, back, side to side. Bija mantra is Hum. 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 And then deep into the midbrain, through the brainstem, deep into the center of the head. Taking all the chakras in the head all together, focusing on that light in the center of the head. Mantra is Om. Om. Slowly guiding your consciousness from the center of the head to the center of the throat, dreaming state. And then from the center of the throat, back to the heart center. Deep sleep state. Just stay there. Sensing and feeling, please. This entire central mountain, central axis of the universe. All stars, all constellations, all elements housed within you. Extending these vibrations, pulsations of loving kindness to all beings. May all beings be happy. Moving in all directions. All beings in all nations, may all be free. All sentient beings everywhere, may all feel whole. May all come out of their sufferings, their ignorance, delusion, illusion. May all beings be liberated. From your heart, just exhale, travel down to Manipura, solar plexus, depositing these kind wishes, loving wishes back into the chakras, from Manipura to Swadhisthana, pelvic center. From pelvic center to the base, Muladhara, that holds this whole universe upright. To recognize that we go up to come down. We energize, we awaken to then serve, to come back to the heart, to come back to our body in service to all. As bodhisattvas, not ones who just want our own liberation, but to come back to this understanding of our dharma to serve all beings. Good. Just take one final breath, please. When you're ready, you can take your hands to your face. Just open the eyes, come back. Namaskar. Thank you so much, everybody. I don't know if I have any time for questions, but I think it's good to maybe stop.
Thank you so much, Kushi. Just everybody who has questions, please feel free to save them until next week. And there's also a link to Kushi's website where you can contact her. Kushi, just one important question. I think a lot of people were trying to cite some of the beautiful quotes that you shared with us, and they just wanted to be able to dive a little bit deeper into those readings and those texts. Are those available on your website as well?
So what I'll do is I will share this PDF. Excuse me, hard to speak right now. I will share this PDF with on the website, your Yoga Alliance website, and in it I will add the quotes.
Awesome. So I hope everybody heard that so that you guys can access those when you are ready. And please feel free to bring your questions next week. Have a great day. Thank you so much, Kushi.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Namaste.
Lots of love. Thank you so much.